So we've been just kind of doing an overarch view of 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, and we've landed at a point now where we're looking at three components that Paul charges us to have, to be the good soldier, the athlete, and the farmer. So, and then the passage says, take some time to reflect on this, and the Spirit will tell you. So now that we've had some reflected time, as we probably zip-lined and did some archery. How many people are doing archery? Yes. Anyone get a bullseye? Anyone land a bullseye? Look at you. Now that we've had time to reflect on what Paul has been saying, there's one tiny word still shouting out for my attention every time when I look at this passage. And that tiny little word is perfect. The expectation to be absolutely the best in my faith. Now, I don't blame you if you're thinking the same thing. It's most certainly the message we hear from everywhere else, right? Be the perfect little soldier. Stay focused towards that bright future ahead for you. Don't get distracted. Stay on task. Or perhaps we're constantly hearing giving it 110%, right? Even though that we know it's mathematically impossible, but to perform at a rate our bodies can't even physically achieve, but therein lies the goal. Or perhaps it's just the work hard, stay busy, keep our schedules full. A part of you is saying, oh yeah, this is no problem. And if this is perfection, then I can actually obtain it, if that's what you're describing, because I'm doing those things. And I have matched perfection. And people seem to be really pleased with what I'm doing. At least everyone is. But I know, and you know, that what we say externally isn't always the same of what's going on inside. And can I just say from experience that our illusion of perfection eventually gives way to reality. The fantasy doesn't last forever. Forever has already moved on to our next test score. It's moved on to our next game. And it's moved on to your next insightful thought. Or for some of us, just our next picture on Instagram. How are you going to be able to pull it off again, right? I got so many likes. How are you going to be able to keep that? You performed so well in that game. Can you do that again? Can you have that? Because the scouts are coming next week. How are you going to pull it off again? And that's our problem when we're really focused on pleasing man. How can we keep up our perfection? The battle inside is actually much darker. And most of the time it's because things in life get handed to us rather than us creating life from just nothing. In life, sometimes we're given things pre-ruined, at least to our eyes. And we try to fix things outside of our control. Like, why, God? Why did you give it to me like this? And we fight to obtain our idea of perfection. Why do I look like this? Why does my family have no money? Why do I struggle in school? Why are there holes in my sweatshirt? All great questions. If we can't get perfection, we'll fight to cover it up and try to continue the illusion on repeat, right? We turn into complainers demanding answers. Most of the time, our complaining starts to move on towards other people, others' abilities, and other situations. Sometimes it moves on to us just simply looking in the mirror, and we start to pinpoint all the flaws, at least to our eyes. Or we start pointing blame at being someone else's fault, right? Don't want to take ownership. It's your fault that I didn't perform the way I should have. You should have had done your job. This isn't listening. This is not seeing. This is not trying to find out what God is up to. And even if we knew, we'd be unsatisfied with God's answer because, quite frankly, it wasn't ours. Why am I sick? Why do I have this nose? This isn't the way I like it. My face has acne. This is broken. Why doesn't he love me? It's not new. Thanks, but it's not new. Or, this is torn. And God says, but I saw it on Pinterest and I thought it was cool. I'm almost positive he says that. And here's why I say this. I'm not defending it. Here's what I'm really telling you. A lot of times, these are exactly how our life is presented to us, right? We get things and you're like, I expected that to look differently. I didn't expect it to be all messy and painful or broken or shredded. I thought it would be perfect. I thought it would be exactly what I needed. I thought I was in control of what I get. We're not. And God is not saying, hey, I found it on Pinterest, and that's why I made your life the way it is. But God is saying, because I gave it to you like this, there's going to be something really awesome that happens with me. I'm going to take this thing, ripped, torn, broken, shredded, this nose you don't like, and I'm going to do something with it that you don't see. We're just too focused on complaining, and that's the problem. But this is you know what the real battle is happening inside, right? And you and I both know that the battle going on inside is our facade to keep our image of perfect afloat. And internally, we're always just about to fall apart. If we can just stay one step ahead from everything, then maybe no one will catch on that we don't actually have it all put together, that our faith isn't actually just about to collapse. See, the irony is that we keep thinking that we can obtain perfect. And if we do that, if we keep thinking that, then we will keep moving away from seeing our need for Jesus. Now, we read 2 Timothy. How are we going to be the perfect soldier, the perfect athlete, the perfect farmer? How are we going to pull that off? Well, actually, okay, hang on. If we read that passage, I don't think that passage ever said the word perfect. Oh, sure it did. No, actually, subconsciously, I think I put it there each time I read it. We put ourselves on such a high pedestal, always thinking we have the ability to achieve and accomplish perfection. We do not learn. This passage, 2 Timothy, this passage is about striving for Christ. Not in perfect times, but broken moments of hardship where Christ's grace is needed. Let's read it again. In 2 Timothy 1, it says, "You then, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus." It does not say, before it lists these things that we have to do, that make sure that you achieve these three things to perfection. It just simply says, be strong in God's grace, in the grace that comes from Jesus Christ. In the passage even further, it declares that God's word is unchained. Do you know what that means? It means, in verse 9, when it says that God's word is unchained, that it actually means that when what he says in verse 1, that Jesus' grace is going to be our strength. Jesus' grace is the thing that is going to move us to these three things. This is what life's actually all about. Instead about getting it done right, it's about choosing to endure with Christ in the moments of hardship. It's about choosing to have Christ's joy, the pursuit of Christ, and a deep longing for him when everyone else says that we should be unsatisfied, that it's not perfect. Life on earth is about relying. In heaven, it's about perfection. It's about done. And there's only once on earth that it was ever said, it was finished. This is crucial. Those moments when it was finished, when it was perfect, is the moment that we all need. because Jesus' faith is to our benefit. And if you're going to write anything down tonight, that is it. Jesus' faith is to our benefit because he does something we can't. He accomplishes perfection. You guys ever taken the time to realize this? Where Adam was the perfect representation for all of us, to our sin, to turn away from God's righteousness, Jesus is the perfect representation for us on the cross. On one side of us, you have a moment when we choose as a body, as God's people, to turn away from God. And you, Isaac, you, Danny, you could not have done a better job than Adam and Eve. You could not have said to yourself, well, if I was there, none of us would have been in this mess. Adam is actually the perfect representation for each one of us, and he represents us in that moment when he chooses to sin, to turn away from God. And yet the coolest thing is that on the other side, Jesus is the perfect representative for us on the cross. In Romans 5:12, if you guys jump there real fast, I'll start in 5:12 for you guys. In 5:12 it says this, "Therefore, just as sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin, and in this way came to all men, because all sinned." It continues later that says in Romans 5:15, "How much more did God's grace and the gift that came by one man, named Jesus Christ, not Adam, how much more did it overflow to the many?" So much. And Jesus was not some religious artifact that was needed to break a spell. We're cursed, so we need to have some Indiana Jones artifact up there, and then once it's placed, ta-da, it's all back together. No, Jesus actually didn't just fly down to earth like Superman, say, "Where's the cross?" and then, "Oh, there it is," and then got on it, and the problem was solved. Instead, Jesus lived a life. He lived a life of faith. He participated in trusting the Father. He exemplified for us how to trust God, starting off as just a little baby just like us. Just like us. And because of who he is and his authority, his faith is a benefit to us. Jesus was the perfect soldier. He knew the will of his Father. He didn't shy away from it. Jesus was the perfect athlete. He was obedient to his Father's will. He fought the good fight as he was faithful to his Father's plan. He endured. He fulfilled the law, a law which was to demonstrate to us not that we could be perfect, that we could accomplish it, but to show us how much we couldn't, and that somebody who was perfect had to. He was sinless with every ability to do so. Jesus had every opportunity to make the mistakes we did, and yet he didn't. Jesus was the perfect athlete. Jesus was the perfect farmer. He suffered on the cross, not only bore our sin, but bore the judgment because of it. He took on the wrath of God, which was meant for us. Oh, yuck. The word wrath does not sound good, but everyone knows that that word wrath is in the Bible. Now, we don't like to think about this, but actually, did you guys know that wrath is at the central heart of the gospel? James Montgomery Boyce, if you want to look up an old man, says this: God's wrath is his righteousness, reacting against unrighteousness. It's pretty smart. God's wrath is his righteousness, the thing that is right and true, and it is responding to the things that are not. In order for there to be justice, a wrong must be treated as such, and we don't like that. The wrong must be judged. The penalty must be paid. But instead of the guilty party paying, you and I, right? Through the love of the judge, the perfecter of faith pays the price. He endures the wages of sin, he overcomes, and he receives his rightful share of the crops, just like the farmer. He gets the first of the crops, doesn't he? Do you know what the crops are? For Jesus, they're you and I. They're his children. They're us. And Jesus' faith as a farmer is best described as a good shepherd. This type of farmer has a low-class job. Back then, it was looked down upon to be a shepherd. And the difference between the shepherds and those that had sheep are quite different. Those that had sheep but didn't want to be the shepherd, they tended to hire somebody. Now, the hired hand, when wolves and thieves came to take the sheep, the hired hand would do pretty much what any of us would do, right? Hey, look, I'm not getting paid for this. Not well enough. I'm out. And off they go. Check out John 10, starting in verse 11, and then I'm going to jump. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd who owns the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. Shepherd's not looked fondly, right? The hired hand is one that would flee when it starts to get tough. Do you want to know what makes it the shepherd a good shepherd? He owns the sheep, which means he's invested, and this is it. This is what he has. And he's going to protect his investment. What I love about that passage is how cool it is if you know more of the history of how sheep pens worked back then. And what's really cool is that the sheep pen, the way it worked, when you kept the sheep at night and you kind of put them into the pen, there would be the pen itself, but then there would just be an opening. And in the passages, Jesus says, I am the gate, but then he also says that I am the good shepherd. Well, which one is it, Jesus? Are you the gate or the shepherd, right? Stick with the analogy. Well, actually, he's both. What's really cool is about the shepherd at nighttime would lay across the entrance to the sheep pen, and this is where he would spend the night. And so the only way to the sheep is through him. The only way for the sheep to escape is through him. He is the protector of the sheep, both inside and from the sheep themselves. This is what the good shepherd is, that they lay down their life, right? This is where they sleep. And Jesus says, I lay my life down for the sheep. How cool is that? When you start thinking about what he actually did, is that he put his life on the line, but more so, he put it in harm's way. And he did it to protect us from what's out there and to protect us from ourselves. Because let's face it, sometimes we're pretty dumb sheep and we just want to jump off a cliff for some weird reason. And so Jesus is actually kind of this. He takes these things, right? And when he laid his life down, it looked more like this, right? He uses analogy of a sheep pen, by the way, before he even does this, okay? And he takes his faith and he does this. And the night before, he goes to the Father, right? To the point of sweating blood, says, take this cup, but if it's your will, I will do this, right? I know my Father. I know my commanding officer. I know your plan. I know the law. I know what needs to be done. And so, if you guys jump to Luke Luke 23, 38, 43. He went to the cross, and when he went to the cross, he went to obliterate our sin from God's sight. So I'm going to read the passage before I talk about it, because I think that would be wise in case I miss anything. But Luke chapter 23, starting in verse 38. There was a written notice above him, which read, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Christ? Save yourselves and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God?" he said. "Since you are under the same sentence, we are punished justly. For we are getting our deeds, what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong." And then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And then Jesus answered him, "I tell you the truth, today you will be with me in paradise." This is really cool. On top of Jesus' cross reads, "This is the King of the Jews." And then on each side of him are two thieves. And two thieves have a completely different reaction to Jesus hanging on the cross. One is snarky. One is, let's say, disrespectful, but ultimately clueless. So focused on themselves, so focused on this earth, that if you really are the Son of God, save yourself, prove it, and then save me, because I don't want to be here, right? But on the other side, we have a man that says, "Don't you fear God?" The only commodity that this guy has left, the only commodity he has left, he surrenders it up to Jesus. Fear. At this point, that's all you got when you're hanging on a cross. No money, no nothing else is going to get you out of that situation, not even your good looks. All you got is fear. And he chooses to give it to Jesus. Jesus was hung just like these two people. He was hung like a common thief. He was actually accused of what is known as a various law. It's a various law because they couldn't actually find anything to accuse him about. So this various law says you have to be hung. And beside him, these two thieves hanged. Which side are you on of Jesus? Forget these for a second. Which side are you on? Are you going to be on the side that tries to save your own life for here? That you're focused on earning it somehow? That you would actually take these things, not applying them to your life because of how much you know him, love him, and who he is and the why, but because you're over here going, "Can you prove yourself to me? And then that way I can earn salvation. I can be with you. Look, I'm wearing these things. I'm the best. I've matched all of this." Or are you going to be the type of person that says, "This is who you are. You are these perfect things. You are the perfect soldier. You are the perfect athlete. You are the perfect farmer. And all I have to offer at this point is I'm scared. I got nothing on my own." And if your word is unchained, by golly, that means then that my strength is only going to come by your grace, which is your power, which you claim is for me. So Jesus, would you just remember me in your kingdom? Would you just, when you come to be the king that you are in your kingdom, will you just remember me? You know what Jesus' response to that is I tell you the truth. He tells you the truth because he is the truth. And he says, I promise today, you will be with me in paradise. You will be in this perfect union, relationship, everything that you've been stressed out about, it'll all be perfect because you'll be with me completely. So we can trust and rely on that, or we can spend our life over here just fighting and struggling and just calling shots, complaining, looking for answers that'll never satisfy us. Which side are you on?